Hey everyone, I'm David, New Plymouth, New Zealand. I'm just in Brooklands Park, which is quite a nice park in the city. See over here, there's an old colonial hospital. I spent many years fixing this old Mark 4 up. The engine is out of a later Mark. The original engine was a later one, obviously, with this got a wooden dash. But the block I rebuilt was an early one. It didn't have the recessed lip on the top of the wall. And the other advantage of it is it had actual cam bearings, with the later ones the cam just run in the block. It's got the later head with the bigger exhaust valves, the later crank, later con rods, high volume oil pump. Not for improved braking, but just for safety, I put a twin line brake system on it, just so if we lose either the front or the rear, hopefully I still should be able to stop it. It's just got the standard radiator. It's never been any problems with cooling it. I've got an oil filter adapter, so I can just run a more modern oil filter. It's just got a, I presume, Chinese aftermarket electronic ignition, but for this type of car it seems to work perfectly fine. And I just put in the biggest battery I could possibly find, just with the isolating switch on the battery. This is one of those things I probably should have never started, because it's had flaws in the outer sill strengthening panels, sections in the bottom of the rear guards. The only panel that has not been off the car is the right rear guard. The colour is sapphire blue. It's a Triumph or British Leyland colour. I don't know if it's original to the Spitfire. Just a note, a bit of interest to some guys, this hood came from Moss Europe, and I've also had a previous hood from Rimmer Brothers, but all these hoods seem to be the same. This seam here, the seam isn't correct, so when you put the hood on you end up with a gap at the front here, so this little piece should be flush with the drain channel there. And also the lip here, where they all leak, there's the small lip here, and the window's meant to roll up under this lip to seal it. So they're not a very good fit. I don't know what you can do about that. They all seem to be made by a similar manufacturer. The actual hood qualities are right, it's just I think the main problem is this rear seam, where it is sewn, is too tight. It's a bit hard to tell, but you can sort of see here this sealing piece is leaning back a bit. It should be a bit further forward. I've just kept the standard wheels, because the suspension componentry in these cars is pretty light, so the standard wheels seem to be the way to go. It's got a later model different. It's a 3.89. I think it's out of a 1500. Obviously here in New Zealand, with the 20 shoes on them, a lot of people have trouble making these cars idle, and the reason I found is the brass shafts that hold the butterflies in these shoes wear, and you're starting to suck in air, so they run quite lean. Just a AliExpress electric washer on there. I don't know what else to say. Certainly good fun to drive. Doesn't go very fast, but with the high ratio diff, it's certainly quite drivable. I did look at putting an overdrive in it, but the cost here in New Zealand of doing that and getting it all up and running and reconditioning it was going to be huge. So I just decided to just stick with a conventional gearbox. The fuel tank in this one was pretty rotten. I cut a hole in it, and I might have had a previous video on YouTube somewhere. I cleaned out the inside, POR 15 tank sealer on the inside, welded the patch back in that I'd cut open, and let it over the weld just to make sure it wouldn't leak. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun to drive. I put new springs in the front. Oh, that's another note. The rear spring, I bought an aftermarket swing spring from Moss Europe, but it was over arched and the back of it set up tremendously high, so just watch out if you do that. You'd probably, in my mind with these cars, if you can use the original components, that is certainly the way to go, because you're better to recondition the original components rather than get the remanufactured stuff, because a lot of the remanufactured stuff is honestly rubbish. The point being, with the tail lights, the rubber seal which sits behind the tail lights, I think Victoria British had the original proper seal, But if you look at Rimmer Brothers or some of the other manufacturers, they just sell like a thin little foam seal, which is no good at all. It's got a high volume oil pump in it, so no problem with oil pressure. Unfortunately, these seats are made new foams for them, but the seat covers, they're not quite the bucket seats they should be. So in the distance we can see Mount Egmont, or I think we call it Mount Taranaki now. It's about 8,260 feet high, bit of snow on it there. It's got a couple of ski fields on it. They're probably you'd probably call them the club field, because it's fairly steep. So it's still winter here in New Zealand. I think we're just in the beginning of spring. This is just quite an old park. It's quite a small city, but it's certainly a nice place to live. Beautiful gardens. And this is an old colonial hospital from colonial times.